So first quarter Glanbia earnings are out. Did we just witness a hiccup or a bigger slip up? So this video is going to be covering the 2019 quarter one earnings report for Glanbia. If you guys have followed any of my earnings report breakdowns before, you guys know I dive into the numbers the best I can, give you guys a sense of those. Try not to make this super dry, but I pull a lot of knowledge, insights from those, give you guys some commentary around that. So hopefully you guys can get a ton of value regardless of what type of stakeholder you are within the functional consumer packaged goods industry. If you take out all of the multi-level marketing companies, Glanbia portfolio is the biggest one to look at. So usually a lot of really good information, give you guys a peek into some of the bigger market macro trends that are happening. But Glanbia is not a US based company, and because of that they have some different reporting requirements that happened. So I'm not able to pull some of the same information that I do with some of the other US based earnings reports, but I do have some percentage numbers that'll definitely help you. If you're looking to peg any of these percentages back to particular numbers, I did do an earnings report, full year 2018 earnings report breakdown for Glanbia a couple months ago. So if you want to, I'll pop up one of those things there for you guys to see that if you want to look back on that one. But Glanbia, just like any other multinational company, they report kind of two ways, and the one that I always look at is constant currency, because you want to back out a lot of like the foreign exchange things that are happening that are in the short term that could affect comparison between periods. So on a constant currency standpoint, Glanbia did increase revenue 8.4%. If you guys remember, Glanbia as a portfolio, it has two main divisions. You have Glanbia Nutritionals, which is the US cheese business, and the Nutritional Solutions business. And then the one that I pay the most attention to is Glanbia Performance Nutrition. These two divisions are actually pretty close to 50-50. I think the Glanbia Performance Nutrition is a little bit bigger than 50% at this point. But going back to that revenue number, that 8.4% gain in revenue on a constant currency basis, if we break that down a little bit, you'll get a better understanding, and maybe this will give you a little bit of a telltale of what I was talking about in the intro. So of the 8.4% gain in revenue, you had 9.7% of that associated with acquisitions. And there was two acquisitions. One big one that affected it was SlimFast. The other one was on the Glanbia nutritional side, which was Watson Ingredients. You had 9.7% gain in that. So that's over the 8.4%. So you can see that there's probably a counter to this that you're about to see. Volume growth was 1.4%. And then they had pricing pressure of 2.7%. So if you take the 9.7, you add in the 1.4, and then you back out the 2.7, you get to that number that I just talked about, that 8.4. So talked about the split before. We're not going to really talk about the nutritionals, Glanbia nutritional section, but just to kind of note, this is another kind of maybe another kind of hint about what you're going to see on the other side of this equation. But you had Glanbia nutritionals, that section, they were up 10.4% year over year. And they're saying there was volume increases that was happening from some of their value-added dairy. And then they also were saying a lot of interest in the Asian region for their ingredients. And then they are also attributing some of that growth to the Watson acquisition. So let's dive into that Glanbia Performance Nutrition section. You guys can maybe see that things are not as rosy maybe on this quarter here. And I'll explain initially those numbers, and then I'll explain to you a little bit about how those numbers came to be. Glanbia Performance Nutrition is their brand portfolio. You have brands like Optimum, BSN, you have Isopure, you have Amazing Grass, you have ThinkThin, American Bodybuilding, and then you have their newly acquired SlimFast. And then they also have kind of international brands, a NutriAmino, and then a internet retailer / private label brand, Body and Fit. So this quarter, on a constant currency standpoint, they did see a 4.9% increase in revenue on the Glanbia Performance Nutrition section. Sounds good, sounds great, right? Now, again, how I did it before, breakdown, let's see how that number came to be. SlimFast was a new part of revenue. They didn't purchase this in quarter one, so you have ton of revenue getting added to the books that was not on the books from a comparative standpoint in 2018. So you have an increase from them at 24.8%. So much bigger than the overall number of 4.9%. So how, what was kind of affected here? So they're saying there was a decrease in volume, sales volume, of 16.5%. So really big number there. I'll explain a little bit about maybe what caused some of that. good explanation, but it's still a very big number. And then they also saw a decrease in pricing pressure of 3.4%. So if you take this slim fast number, 24.8, back out the 16.5 on the volume loss, back out the 3.4 in the pricing pressure, and you get that number that I was talking about before of about 4.9% constant currency revenue gain for Glanbia Performance Nutrition. So let's start at the volumes. That one is maybe where the shock is going to be, at least initially when I just was breezing over the press release, was where my shock value went initially, because I'm thinking, you know, volumes have been good. Volumes have been increasing, and the guidance that Glanbia put out at the end of 2018 was that, you know, full year volumes and consumption was going to match the industry standard of mid-single digits. So it's initially a kind of a shock here. So what happened with the volumes? Why were the volumes so low? So first, that was noted on earnings call, was around seasonality. So most of us that work in the industry or have worked in the industry for a long time around nutritional supplements and sports nutrition, you tend to think about seasonality in the sense of your first quarter is your best quarter, because that's where you have a lot of the sales that are driven from people that are interested in getting in shape for the New Year's in terms of their goals, also some spring break and kind of getting into the summer months. So that might be a little bit confusing, where they're saying seasonality was part of the cause to the lower volumes, when you should be seeing a lot of volume in quarter one. That's true maybe from a traditional sense, smaller, mid-size sports nutrition, nutritional supplement brands. That is definitely correct. That's still true today. Now you're working at the volume of Glanbia, and then you're working at sales channels like food, drug, mass convenience. You have this idea of sell-in that happens at late quarter four, especially with the added interest, added excitement around these products, these functional CPG, better for you, healthier for you products that are in these food, drug, mass convenience retailers now. You have this extra buy-in that's happening at the end of fourth quarter. So that is affecting Glanbia's business, and that's why they had a very strong quarter four and a kind of a poor quarter one, is because they had a sell-in, a big sell-in that happened in quarter four. There was a sell-through that happened in quarter one. So you're going to see, I'm predicting you're probably going to see positive correction that happens in quarter two with that volume on the Glanbia Performance Nutrition section. And then the other thing they're talking about is mostly from the non-US side of things. They're talking about some of these supply chain initiatives that they have going on here. So Glanbia is changing some of their international distributors. They're also changing the way they do business internationally. Some of them, they are cutting out the distributor and going more in a direct model. Some of their direct-to-consumer initiatives, taking ownership of some of those international markets. So you're going to see some issues there that are going to happen, some fluctuations. So you had just some things that went on that caused that. And the leadership team on the conference call said that affected the numbers somewhere around 6%. The other portion of that is probably from that Q4 sell-in, and then there was just part of that was just a natural volume decrease. So second part of this is just the pricing side of it, the pricing pressure that's happening. This is not necessarily a Glanbia problem. This is a problem across all CPG categories. So you're seeing pricing pressure that's happening two ways. One, from the promotional and sales side of things, you have innovations that are happening. Constant innovations cause you to be constantly kind of pushing something new into market. So you need to have some different sales and promotional type of materials that are happening with that. You're also seeing a lot more competition across retailers, across all sides of the sales equation. So you're tending to see margins kind of decrease, and depending on how that company, how that CPG portfolio deals with it, either they eat it or they pass it, that's causing some issues with pricing pressure. So the last so many quarters, Glanbia has had some pricing pressures. They've ate those prices, partly because they own some of the supply chain. They can do those things, but Glanbia did note in quarterly and on their call that they are going to be passing some of that pricing. So there are going to be pricing increases on the second half of 2019. So if your store, account, distributor, whatever that is, just be cautious of that. That is going to be something that is going to come down the pipe. Last so many periods, why they ate that was kind of twofold. One, there were some foreign exchange things that were happening from the local level, but they're also saying there's an increase in just the pricing of some of the inputs on the whey protein side. So they're saying that we can't eat this forever. We're gonna have to pass this on. You're seeing this happening a lot more with some of the CPG portfolios that are passing this along. We'll see if that has a kind of a counter effect to it. I personally believe there could be some counter effects that happen with them, with all these CPG companies pushing their branded products at a higher price point. think that just kind of brings people back to like private label, accelerates the already fast growing private label business. But we'll see if that kind of happens. I think in the short term, it's hard to see some of those changes. That's something that you have to really pay attention to on a longer term basis. And then the last part of that equation that I was putting together to let you guys know how 4.5%, 4.6% of revenue growth happened was that SlimFast acquisition. So they talked extensively about SlimFast, how successful the SlimFast integration has been so far. I think there was some supply chain issues and things that were happening with SlimFast when they bought it. So they were able to clean a lot of that up. They also saw strong growth in both some of the new innovations, but also some of the core products. They were really high on that keto line that came out in the US market. They're saying there's a ton of growth that's happening there. Glanbia as a whole was very big on this SlimFast name. I think they thought they got a really good deal on it. They think there was a lot of value in the SlimFast name. I agreed when they bought it. I thought there was a lot of value for them there, not only from them just getting some synergies and being able to run that business more effectively, but I think there was also some relationships with different accounts, also some different formats in terms of ready to drink that they could leverage and hopefully help the overall Glanbia portfolio expand a little bit in some of those sections. Now finally, just want to shift into some like consumption behaviors, things that I picked up throughout the earnings call, some of the questions that analysts asked, also some things that I'm seeing from my side, hopefully give you guys some knowledge insights. This is going to be maybe where you guys pick up the best bits of information. So Glanbia is seeing consumption behavior, consumption trends, growth happening for their business that's going to match where they think the industry as a whole is going to be. And I talked about this a little bit before. Mid-single digits is where the industry as a whole is growing. There are pockets within the bigger industry that are growing much quicker. And Glanbia is obviously going to be trying to innovate in those areas to make sure they can expand that growth past the industry standard. Some of the channels that they were getting some positive indicators from was direct-to-consumer, which they're spending a lot of money on globally to expand their direct-to-consumer offerings. And then they're also talking about Club. Club is performing very well. Last time I was at Costco, I saw a ton more Glanbia-owned brands in there, so I think they're seeing some opportunity there. This goes in line with some other brands that are publicly traded, like Muscle Farm, that did see a lot of growth in clubs. This is an area where functional CPG brands definitely see some area of opportunity. From a brand standpoint, they tend not to really talk a lot about the specific brands on these calls, but you did see them note a few of them. SlimFast, they talked about extensively. We've already kind of talked about that one. They talked about Amazing Grass in terms of just some of the lifestyle consumers, some of the plant-based and kind of greens and wellness as being some hot areas. And they also talked about ThinkThin, which ThinkThin is actually going through a rebrand right now. They're going to move over to just Think Products. I'm actually going to touch on this on a different video. I'm going to dive into why they're doing this, why this is happening across the industry. So I'm not going to dive a little bit into that, but they think this rebrand from ThinkThin to Think Products is definitely going to help that product line. We talked about just some behaviors around product. Again, they don't tend to talk a lot about specific products in there, but they do sometimes drop some nuggets around categories. They talked about weight management being a strong positive, energy products, both from traditional powders, caps, those types of things, and then also from like ready-to-drink beverages. And then they talked about plant-based formats, especially energy and plant-based really goes aligned with just overall CPG. Weight management is interesting just because I think they're probably considering keto as weight management. And I think that's where they're probably seeing a lot of that growth, which to me is more lifestyle, is not so much of a diet or weight management trend. So that's probably just a nomenclature difference in terms of how I think about it and they think about it. From an innovation standpoint, they said they're really pushing ready to eat, especially in the US, ready to drink, especially on the SlimFast side, but I think that's going to expand in the US as well. Outside of the US, I think they're really still focusing primarily on the traditional core products, the powders and caps and things of that nature. A lot of the international markets are still very much towards that. Consumption, lifestyle, like on-the-go convenience products, they have a higher per serving price, and because of that you need to have a thriving economy to be able to buy those things and buy those things in an increased number, because it's all about scale, all about numbers. How many can you sell, ones and twosies, at convenience locations or food, drug, mass locations. So you're seeing that mostly coming from the US side, not yet totally to some of their other international markets, which I believe is somewhere around 40% of the business. 60% of it does come from the US market. And then because of this focus on ready to eat and ready to drink, especially from the US side, but that's kind of where a lot of their innovations are coming from. They are seeing some margin pressures just because of that, primarily because of the product mix. Those products have some extra layers of cost that go involved with them. It's a volume play over just a high margin play. So you're gonna see some of that margin pressure that's gonna kind of continue from just a pure product side. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you wanna help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.